Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take your curiosity, grab a whole stack of information, and really boil it down to the core insights for you.
That's right. And you, the learner, you asked us to dig into Wallace Wattles' The Science of Getting Rich.
So that's exactly what we're tackling today. We're pushing past just the surface ideas.
Yeah, forget abstract philosophy for now. This book is all about a practical, almost step-by-step approach to, well, building wealth.
Our mission, then, for this deep dive. Let's really unpack Wattles' main arguments. We want to figure out his method, what he suggests makes someone well-resourced.
And really pinpoint what feels most actionable, most resonant. For someone listening right now who wants a clear path, he emphasizes application, so that's our focus too.
Okay, let's dive right in. First up is a concept that might make some people shift in their seats a bit. The right to be rich. Wattles just comes right out and says it. You basically can't live a truly complete, successful life if you're not rich. That's quite the opener, isn't it?
It really is a strong start. But his reasoning, it's quite practical when you look at it.
How so?
He argues that, developing your mind, your soul, your body, all of that requires using things, material things.
Okay.
And in the society we live in, how do you get those things? Money. It's the main way.
Right.
So he reframes wanting wealth. It's not just greed, in his view. It's fundamental. It's what you need to reach your full potential.
He actually uses the phrase inalienable right to all the development you're capable of. That's, wow, quite a statement.
And he links that directly, to the right to be rich.
Yeah.
But it's crucial how he defines rich.
It's not just about having, like, a Scrooge McDuck vault of gold coins.
Exactly not. For Wattles, being rich means having the free, unlimited use of everything you need.
Everything needed for what, specifically?
For your full mental, spiritual, and physical development, it's about access. Access to the resources that let you become everything you can be, holistically.
Okay, I see how that shifts the focus. It's less about hoarding money and more about, well, enabling a fuller, more abundant life overall.
Precisely. And he tackles the potential discomfort head on. He says this desire for a richer, fuller life is worthy of all praise.
That's interesting considering how, sometimes ambition and wealth-seeking are viewed negatively.
He breaks it down further. He talks about three main motives for living: the body, the mind, and the soul.
Right.
And his point is, none of these can be truly fulfilled if the others are cut short or underdeveloped. They're all linked.
And that links back to needing wealth.
Yes, because wealth provides the means for that holistic fulfillment. He gets pretty specific with examples.
Like what? For the body, for instance.
Well, obviously things like good food, comfortable clothes, warm shelter.
Yeah.
But also freedom from crushing overwork,
Mm-hmm.
rest, recreation. It's about thriving physically, not just surviving.
Okay, that makes sense. And for the mind.
It's things like books, sure, but also the time to study, the opportunity to travel, intellectual companionship, even access to art and beauty, things that expand your horizons.
And the soul. That seems less intuitive in a book about getting rich.
You might think so, but he connects it to love. He argues that expressing love fully often involves giving, benefiting others.
Ah, so if you lack resources.
Exactly. Your ability to express that love, to give materially to loved ones or to contribute to society, it's limited, constrained.
So bringing it all together, he sees studying how to get rich
As the most noble and necessary of all studies. Because, in his view, it's the foundation for actually living fully across all these dimensions.
All right, so he's made his case for why being rich is, in his view, essential.
Yeah.
A right, even. Now he starts getting into the how, doesn't he? The mechanics.
Yes. Chapter 2 hits hard. There is a science for getting rich.
A science? That sounds very exact, definitive.
It is. He's quite clear. Getting rich isn't about luck or environment or even just raw talent. It follows exact laws. Like algebra, he says.
Like algebra. So predictable.
That's the claim. Wealth comes from doing things in a certain way. That specific phrase is key.
And this certain way, it overrides other factors we usually think are important, like where you live or how smart you are.
He argues it does, largely. He uses examples to sort of dismantle those common assumptions.
What kind of example?
Well, he points out rich and poor people often live in the exact same town, same environment, sometimes working in the same fields.
Okay.
He also notes that incredibly talented people sometimes stay poor, while others with, let's say, less obvious talent get rich.
Mm.
And it's not just about being frugal either. Some extremely thrifty people are poor, while some generous people become wealthy. It challenges simple explanations.
What about people in the same line of work?
That's a powerful one he mentions. Two people, same business, maybe even similar efforts, but vastly different results financially.
So it really boils down to how they're doing things, according to him, that certain way.
That's his core argument. It's the method that counts most.
But couldn't that certain way be incredibly difficult, requiring some genius, intellect, or superhuman ability?
He addresses that directly. He
Yeah.
says, look, people with all sorts of levels of intelligence, all kinds of physical abilities, have become rich using this way.
So it's accessible.
He claims very much so. He basically says, if you can read this book and understand it, you have all the natural ability you need.
Yeah,
Which is pretty encouraging, right?
definitely. But what about things like location or choosing the right business? Surely those matter.
He doesn't dismiss them entirely. He agrees, being in a good location helps. Matching your talents to what your community needs, that's smart.
Yeah.
But the fundamental thing, the absolute key,
Yeah.
is still learning and applying that certain way. Those other things are beneficial, but secondary to the method itself.
Okay, what about the big one? Capital. Needing money to make money.
Ah, yes. He tackles that head on too. Lack of capital, he says, is not a barrier.
Really? How does he figure that?
He argues that getting capital is part of the process. It's something that happens as a result of doing things in a certain way. You don't need it to start.
Wow. That really flips the script for anyone feeling stuck because they don't have startup funds.
It's a very empowering message. He's essentially saying your current situation, poverty, debt, lack of influential friends, none of that has to stop you.
If you start acting in this certain way.
Exactly. The power shifts from external circumstances to your internal approach and actions.
Now, another huge concern people have is about scarcity. The idea that there's only so much wealth to go around. Does he address that? He has a chapter, Is Opportunity Monopolized?
He does, and he comes out swinging against that idea. He flatly denies that anyone's is kept poor because others have cornered the market on wealth.
So the rich getting richer doesn't automatically mean the poor get poorer, in his view?
Correct. He sees opportunity more like a flowing tide. It shifts based on what society needs, how civilization progresses.
And there's always opportunity for those who...
For those who adapt, who move with that current, rather than trying to swim against old waves.
He even takes it a step further regarding, say, employers and employees.
Yeah, he controversially suggests that workers, as a group, aren't necessarily held down by bosses or big companies.
He'd rather by
Not yet doing things in that certain way. He believes these principles are universal, available to anyone regardless of their job or status.
That's potentially a tough pill for some people to swallow.
It can be, definitely. But his underlying message is one of possibility individuals aren't trapped. They can rise above limitations by applying these principles.
And underpinning this is a belief in abundance, right? Not scarcity.
Absolutely massive abundance. He paints this picture almost literally. He says there's enough raw material, enough stuff to build a palace for every single family on Earth.
A palace.
Yeah, and provide lavishly for everyone. He insists the visible supply of resources is practically inexhaustible.
Where does all this abundance come from, according to him? This leads to his idea of the original substance, doesn't it?
Yes. He proposes that everything we see, everything tangible, come from one single underlying stuff, a formless substance.
Formless.
Yeah, like a raw potential from which all things are made. He talks about new forms constantly emerging as old ones dissolve: houses, trees, stars, everything. Different shapes taken by this one substance.
And he says there's no shortage of this substance.
None at all. He calls it amorphous. The universe is made of it, but it's not all used up, not all formed into things yet. There's an infinite supply of this raw potential.
So if that's true, poverty can't be blamed on nature running out of things.
Exactly his point. Nature, he says, is an inexhaustible storehouse. If humanity genuinely needed, say, way more gold, this substance could and would produce it.
That's a pretty mind-bending idea. The universe itself is fundamentally abundant and responsive.
It is. So
Yeah.
the logical question then is, if there's so much potential wealth, why isn't everyone rich?
And his answer comes back to,
It comes back to people not thinking and acting in that certain way, which leads him to a really crucial point about this substance itself.
okay, what's that?
It's not just passive stuff. It's intelligent. It's thinking matter. And, importantly, it has an inherent drive
A drive towards what?
toward more life, increased life, fuller expression. This fundamental impulse is why it creates things in the first place.
And that connects to us how?
Because it wants you, as a center of life, to also have more life, fuller expression. So it naturally wants you to have the things you need for that. It's on your side, so to speak.
Wow. Okay. So we have the right to be rich for full development. There's a science to it based on a certain way. Opportunity isn't limited because the universe is abundant.
And that abundance comes from an intelligent, formless substance that inherently wants more life for everything, including you.
This seems to be building towards the core mechanism. How do we actually do it? How do we interact with this substance? Which I guess brings us to the first principle.
Exactly. This is the linchpin. Wattles states it very clearly. Thought is the only power which can produce tangible riches from the formless substance.
Thought. So it all starts in the mind.
Everything. Because this substance is thinking stuff, he says a thought of a form held within this substance produces that form.
So the universe around us is thoughts made visible.
In essence, yes. All of nature, according to him, is the visible expression of thoughts held within this original substance. When it thinks motion, it produces motion. When it thinks tree, it produces a tree.
He uses the solar system and the oak tree as examples, right?
He does. The thought of planets moving creates the actual planets and their orbits. The thought of an oak sets in motion the processes for its growth, even if it takes time.
But he does make a distinction, doesn't he? Especially about human thoughts. It's not like wishing for $1 million makes it instantly appear.
Right. He clarifies that when we impress a thought, it doesn't always mean instant manifestation out of thin air. Usually, it sets creative forces in motion through existing channels.
Like thinking of building a house.
Exactly. That thought won't poof a house into existence, but it will activate forces in the world, ideas, opportunities, connections, and commerce and labor that lead to the house being built, potentially very quickly.
He even suggests that if no channels existed, it could form directly from the substance, which is a pretty big claim.
It is. It underscores the immense power he attributes to thought. And he stresses that humans are unique as centers where thought can originate.
How so?
Well, anything humans build physically, a chair, a phone, a spaceship, it had to exist as a thought first. You can't make what you haven't conceived.
True.
But he argues, humanity has mostly focused on just shaping existing forms with our hands and tools. We haven't fully grasped or utilized our power to cause new forms to be created directly from the formless substance by impressing our thoughts upon it.
Okay, this feels like it's leading to some core rules or propositions.
It does. He lays out 3 fundamental propositions that are the bedrock of his whole system.
What are they?
First, there is a thinking substance, formless, the source of all things, filling all space.
Second.
Second, a thought held in this substance produces the thing imagined by the thought.
And third?
Third, a person can impress their thoughts onto this substance and cause the creation of the thing they think about.
Wow. Those are foundational. He believes these can be proven.
Yes, through logic, and more importantly for him, through experience. He basically says, follow my instructions based on these truths, get rich, and that will be your proof.
And this connects back to doing things in a certain way.
Directly. Your actions, he says, are simply the outward expression of your thoughts. To act right, you must first think right.
And thinking right, or thinking truthfully, as he puts it, isn't just positive thinking, is it? He talks about thinking truth regardless of appearances.
Yes, and he acknowledges this takes effort, real mental work. Because the world we see, maybe with apparent lack or problems, naturally tends to create corresponding thoughts in our minds.
So thinking truthfully means?
It means holding firmly to the real truth, the underlying reality, the one abundant creative substance. Believing in that abundance even when your bank account or circumstances seem to scream scarcity.
Like thinking of health even when you feel sick, or wealth when you feel poor. That requires discipline.
A lot of discipline. He calls developing this ability gaining power. Becoming a mastermind who isn't controlled by appearances, but shapes reality by holding to the fundamental truth of that single substance.
And he wraps up that section by hammering home those 3 propositions again.
He does. He urges the reader, you, the learner, to accept them fully. Don't argue, don't doubt, just accept them as axioms, make them habitual ways of thinking. He's quite insistent on not letting contradictory ideas shake that foundation.
Okay, so the power of thought is central. Now, he also tackles a potential block for some people, maybe a religious or ethical one, the idea that God or the universe might actually want people to be poor.
Right. His chapter, Increasing Life, takes that idea on directly.
What's his stance?
He says, basically, forget any idea of a God who wills poverty or finds virtue in lack. Completely dismiss it.
Why?
Because that intelligent substance we talked about, The source of everything. It's alive, consciously alive, and it has one fundamental desire for everything that lives.
Which is?
More life, increase, fuller expression. It wants every living intelligence to experience more life.
He uses a seed as an example, doesn't he?
Yes. A seed doesn't just aim to survive, it aims to multiply, to become more. Life inherently seeks expansion.
And he connects that to us, to humans.
Absolutely. Our intelligence naturally wants to grow. One thought leads to more thoughts. Learning one thing sparks curiosity for others. Developing one skill makes you want to develop more.
It's an innate drive for more knowledge, more accomplishment, more being.
Exactly. An urge to live more, he calls it. And to live more in the broadest sense, physically, mentally, spiritually, you need things. You need resources.
Which brings it back to wanting wealth.
Yes. The desire for riches, he argues, isn't just some base greed. It's the natural expression of this drive for more life. It's your potential seeking the means to manifest. It's life wanting to be lived more fully through you.
He takes it even further, saying it's God's or the substance's desire for you to be rich.
That's a big one, yes. His reasoning is, since this living substance wants to express itself more fully, and it lives in and through you, it wants you to have all the tools, the resources, the wealth you can possibly use to allow for that fuller expression.
So the universe itself wants you to have what you want.
That's his assertion. It's fundamentally aligned with your desire for growth and abundance.
But there's a condition, isn't there? A caveat about why you want the wealth.
A very important one. Your purpose needs to be in harmony with the purpose that's in everything, which is more life, real life.
And real life isn't just hedonism.
No, not just chasing cheap thrills or sensual gratification. He defines real life as the balanced, full performance of every function, physical, mental, and spiritual, without harmful excess in any area.
So wanting riches just for selfish indulgence, that's not aligned. What about wanting it only to give away? Pure altruism.
He suggests neither extreme is the ideal. The desire should be for your own fullest life, body, mind, and soul. And that naturally includes having the means to help others, to give, to contribute. It's holistic.
He also pushes back against the idea that self-sacrifice pleases God.
Right. He argues the universe wants you to make the absolute most of yourself for your own sake, and because that allows you to do more for others. Making the best of yourself is the best way to serve.
So focusing your thought and energy on acquiring wealth isn't selfish, it's commendable.
In his framework, yes, because it's the means to greater life and greater contribution. But, and this is critical, he reminds us, the substance's desire is for all. More life for everyone. Meaning it won't rob Peter to pay Paul. It won't take wealth from someone else to give it to you. Its movements are always towards overall increase.
Which leads him to strongly advocate moving away from a competitive mindset.
Absolutely. Towards creation, not competition. You don't need to beat anyone, take anything from anyone, or drive hard bargains. The supply is infinite.
He acknowledges some people do get rich competitively.
He does, but he often attributes that to either extraordinary talent dominating others, or maybe they're unconsciously riding a larger wave of societal progress, even while thinking competitively.
And he suggests that kind of wealth isn't ideal.
He implies it's often insecure, maybe less satisfying, and potentially temporary. And more importantly, thinking competitively, thinking supply is limited, actually cuts you off from the creative power of the formless substance. It closes your mind to true abundance.
So the message is, don't worry about the existing channels being full or resources being locked up.
Exactly. Trust that the wealth you need will come to you, even if it requires the formless substance to create entirely new things, new minerals, new inventions, to meet your need without taking from others.
It's a constant returning to that image of unlimited potential.
Yes. Always look to the infinite riches in the formless substance. Trust it. Know that it will come to you as fast as you can genuinely receive it and use it for more life. That's the core message of that section.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap the ground we've covered in this deep dive. We started with Wattles' idea that being rich is essentially a right necessary for full development.
Then we looked at his claim that there's a science to it, based on thinking and acting in a certain way, which overrides many common assumptions about talent or environment.
We explored his concept of unlimited opportunities stemming from an infinitely abundant, intelligent, formless substance.
A substance that inherently drives towards increasing life for everything and everyone.
And the first principle, that thought, is the creative power that impresses upon this substance to bring things into form.
And finally, that the universe's desire for more life means it fundamentally wants you to have the resources for your fuller life, provided your aim is aligned with that overall purpose of growth, not just competition or base desire.
It's definitely a paradigm shift. It reframes wealth acquisition completely away from a zero-sum game towards, well, towards aligning with a creative, abundant universe.
It really does. And this philosophical and conceptual groundwork is absolutely essential for understanding the more practical actions and attitudes he details later in the book.
Well, learner, we hope this first part of our exploration gives you a solid grasp of Wattles' foundational ideas in The Science of Getting Rich. It certainly presents a unique and, frankly, empowering perspective on wealth and potential.
As you digest this, maybe consider this question. What would truly change for you in your mindset, your daily actions, your goals, if you fully embrace this idea of an inherently abundant universe that actively desires more life for everyone, including you? How might shifting from competition to creation alter everything? Something to think about.